Imagine being the god of your own simulated universe, seeding life and civilization and watching it grow, or living out a whole lifetime in the late Roman Empire trying to reform and save it. Imagine having a mind that never forgets, completely photographic memory, and understanding complex physics better than even Einstein or Stephen Hawking. Imagine floating through Titan's dim orange skies, or dipping your toes in a Martian lake. And imagine living all of these lives over the course of centuries. This is not just fantasy, it might very well be our future, a future some of us alive today might even witness. We are currently on the cusp of a plethora of incredible technologies that, yes, will make society more complicated and have negative consequences in the short term, but could also allow us to live for thousands of years and colonize the galaxy. Around us right now in the 21st century, we're seeing rising authoritarianism, deepening inequality, and the looming reality that artificial intelligence could replace all work, or even become misaligned and a threat to humanity. But throughout our history, dystopias have rarely persisted indefinitely. Things tend to get worse before they get better, before there's enough pressure to enact real change. This video will focus on the far future, a time when the hurdles of today have been overcome, a time when humanity is almost unrecognizable. I've got some big news for everyone who enjoys my content and map making. The official Neatling maps used in my videos are now available for purchase through the new Cartographer membership tier. If you sign up, you'll get access to a folder with my maps in full resolution. You can even join, download everything, and cancel after a week if you just want the one-time purchase. But if you stick around, I'll keep updating my maps and adding new ones over time, like my recent maps of a habitable Mars. Cartographer members, of course, also get all the supporter and patron level perks, like early access to videos, mentions at the end of videos, and updates on my upcoming projects. Making a small channel like this one sustainable as a job is honestly very tough, especially when we don't have a sponsor. So if you have the means and want more content like this, please consider joining. Any support really makes a difference. Humanism and syntheticism, a focus in previous videos in this series, are just broad philosophical camps. They are mainly about power structure and simplify a very complex future society of humans and other beings. Every society relies on super intelligent artificial minds called cognitions in my scenario, but humanists are very strict about what they consider a person with rights and the ability to participate in society. In more humanist societies, artificial intelligence is just a tool. Cognitions, uploaded minds, and human AI hybrids have their personhood and free will very limited to varying degrees, only acting as advisors. And in the very strictest humanist societies, they don't even get to exist. Syntheticists, on the other hand, are more inclusive in what they consider a person. They recognize a wide array of intelligences as beings with rights and social influence. Some syntheticist societies even replace politicians entirely with a governance algorithm, a network of cognitions that are adjusted depending on the outcome of elections. 21st century economic models are also mostly obsolete in major developed civilizations in the solar system, as they no longer rely on human labor. You don't have to do anything to live, really, other than eat the widely available free food and go to sleep in whatever accommodations your society offers. In 31st century society, humans are administrators and decision makers, not the foundation of the economy. Our 31st century societies have 5 broad types of beings. First are regular humans. They have fully intact human brains, but often use cognitions as personal assistants. In this way, regular humans can remain relevant in society despite their fairly primitive natural brains. Thanks to medical advancements, regular humans can also live for centuries in perfect health. A very similar group are augmented humans. These are people who still live in physical bodies and have physical human brains, but have merged their minds with the digital systems to varying degrees. Instead of having a separate sentient cognition to guide them, augmented humans expand their brain capacity directly with computers that work in tandem with the brain. They can have perfect memory, think as quickly and complexly as an AI, but retain a biological core that is human and still in control. Next are uploaded minds, human minds which were digitally copied. Often augmented humans who kept backups in case they died in the physical world. Some uploaded minds still live in physical bodies alongside regular and augmented humans even. They can just leave these bodies for the digital world whenever they so wish. Some also exist solely in simulated worlds that regular and augmented humans can visit through virtual reality, and others live a very different, very alien kind of existence alongside the next group on this list, cognitions, fully sentient artificial beings. Some cognitions are made without free will or needs, and are completely fine with just being tools. Others are given personhood, live as fully independent beings made in the image of the human mind. And a governance algorithm, made up of many cognitions, is more of an entity or super advanced hive mind than it is a person. Syntheticist societies, which make up most societies, have a mix of all of these groups living together in a complex interconnected digital and physical ecosystem. With Mercury being so deep in the sun's gravity well, traveling there is very costly. Its water is also scarce. Because of this, Mercury never became that prominent of a civilization, but fusion-powered constant acceleration drives, developed in the 22nd century, did make it more viable. Over the course of just under 200 years, it developed its own society, culture, and unique Creole language, Mercan, but it remained sparsely populated and isolated, as trade, still done at orbital speeds to save on cost, remained expensive. But Mercury's curse would also be its blessing. Being deep in the sun's gravity well made it the perfect place to launch materials for a Dyson swarm, an absolutely massive network of satellites that would capture a significant portion of the sun's energy to meet the solar system's rapidly growing energy needs. Mercury's population decided to sacrifice their home for a better life. All Mercans would be financially compensated and resettled. By the year 3000, the project would be complete, leaving what almost appears to be a man-made planet. But it is still Mercury, just without its crust and noticeably smaller. What remains of Mercury has become a materials hub. The majority of its population are in some way involved with maintaining the Dyson swarm as decision makers doing administrative work. The Veneran Union also had a slow start as a civilization. Venus is the cheapest place to travel to from Earth, and remarkably similar in size to Earth, but with a thinner crust and no plate tectonics to lock carbon away, volcanism kept pumping CO2 into the air, causing a runaway greenhouse effect. Today, Venus has a crushing 90 times Earth's surface pressure and temperatures of over 400 degrees Celsius. But 50 to 60 kilometers above the surface, among Venus's clouds, it is a lot more habitable, with Earth-like pressure and temperatures. Here the Venusian settlements developed, these floating cities or Venistats. Progress was slow and expensive at first, as almost all construction materials had to be imported, but eventually advancements in material science and silicon carbide-based electronics that can handle the heat enabled surface mining in the hostile environment, making Venusian civilization self-sustaining. These Venistats operate like independent city-states, with their own individual economies and politics. Unlike states on Earth or elsewhere in the solar system, they're not tied to land at all. They drift freely around the planet along with the atmosphere. This shaped Venusian history to be quite different from other planets. With no land to seize, there was little reason for territorial wars, but thousands of independent city-states also meant a lot of competition. A form of cartel politics developed, as power on Venus is all about controlling trade routes. Powerful Venistats colluded with one another to dominate the flow of returning surface mining rigs through mostly economic means, embargoes, tariffs. Over time, these trade leagues grew big enough to look outwards, allowing for Venus to compete on the interplanetary stage. Venus, like most of the solar system, is mostly a syntheticist society, but its population is, remarkably enough, half physical. This is, of course, because of its very comfortable living conditions. By the year 3000, Venus is finally one of the solar system's major powers. Earth, the birthplace of humanity, has always been the dominant force in human civilization. Earth never truly unified. Geopolitical conflicts and wars continued well into the future, but by the 2300s, as Mars grew into a competitive power, the otherwise weak United Nations developed into a loose confederation in order to ensure Earth would not be outcompeted by Mars, which had come to rival Earth's largest superpowers. During the Great Exodus, between the 2300s and 2500s, much of its population sought new opportunities across the solar system and aboard the first interstellar voyages, which greatly improved living standards as there were more resources to go around. By the year 3000, the political map of Earth looks very different. Earth's largest constituent states are these broad unions and federations that are made up of smaller member states. Some unions are more devolved, with member states holding most power, and others are more centralized, with strong federal governments. Each bloc is a great power in its own right. No single power dominates the planet. Centuries of competition between these great powers completely reshaped the political world map. Following the better part of a century as a Chinese puppet state, and millions of Chinese migrants settling the Far East, Russia fractured as its west turned to Europe to preserve what remained of Russian statehood. The small holdout of the American sphere of influence in East Asia grew closer in order to remain relevant and resist being absorbed into the Chinese sphere. Pakistan, despite its close cultural ties with India, grew closer to the Chinese-aligned bloc in Central Asia and Iran because of its political rivalry with India. Most of the Arab world and Middle East, after centuries of being a geopolitical chessboard, eventually came together as a bloc, spearheaded by Egypt, as the old Gulf monarchies collapsed and the Levantine Union ended a century of conflict and segregation. As the Maghreb Union became one of Europe's most important sources of rare earth minerals, it became very wealthy. This allowed them to complete one of the largest geoengineering projects in Earth's history, completely transforming the Sahara. Rising regional powers like India, Southeast Asia, Australia, East Africa, Nigeria, Congo, South Africa, and Mexico formed common markets with their neighbors. Canada integrated into the American market whilst remaining politically distinct. And a South American Union and a hybrid Latin culture formed between Brazil and its Spanish-speaking neighbors, inspired by its close partners in Europe. Earth leans syntheticist, but with stronger humanist influences than most of the solar system. Artificial life is fully recognized as having rights, but political deliberations are still conducted in traditional human ways. Standard coglang thought and deliberation never became the norm here. Earth, of course, also maintains a massive physical population, simply because it remains the most naturally habitable world in the system. Earth's greatest asset is this population, which outnumbers every other society. They contribute not only in the arts and culture, but also through decision-making roles wherever a human perspective is considered valuable. Mars was the first planet outside of Earth to be settled by humanity. Its population grew rapidly, and as the Martian Federation formed out of its many colonies, it quickly rose to prominence and rivaled even Earth's superpowers. Mars once had a thicker atmosphere and oceans, but without a powerful enough magnetosphere, it gradually lost both. As it would turn out though, most of its water remained, locked away, frozen in the soil. Terraforming began with a weak artificial magnetosphere and an immense effort to release frozen CO2 and water using local fusion power plants. By the 2500s, the low-lying Hellas Planitia was partially habitable, though most of Mars remained a cold desert and the atmosphere unbreathable for humans. As the solar system's Dyson swarm grew, the vast new energy supply made it possible to construct a proper magnetosphere that could fully shield the planet and a breathable atmosphere. Mars is a democracy made up of 7 federal dominions. Tharsis, dominated by the Great Plateau and Olympus Mons, with fertile river valleys along its coasts, home to the capital Samudia. Magridifer, dominated by densely populated lowland plains and rivers. Argyre, centered on the Argyre Sea, which freezes over during winter. Arabia, the most populous dominion, as it's home to the largest temperate coastal plain. Hellas, centered around the Hellas Sea, once the center of Martian civilization prior to full terraforming, and home to the old capital Concordia. Elysium, which offers the warmest habitable climate, subtropical and lush year-round, as its coast and isles straddle the equator. Cyrenia, the harsh southern highlands straddling the ice cap, focused on mining and a few lakeside settlements. By the 31st century, Mars is of course one of the solar system's superpowers, second only to Earth. The Jovian system was a late bloomer compared to Mars. Its distance from the sun and harsh environment delaying large-scale settlement. The Jovian Commonwealth was a state born from war, the first celestial war. Lysithea ordered a first strike, naively hoping to force a swift victory. Callisto responded with a gigaton nuclear strike that shattered Lysithea. In its aftermath, Callisto's oligarchic elite consolidated power, pacifying the planetary system and forming the Jovian Commonwealth in order to maintain stability. Most of the Jovian system's physical population lives in vast domed cities, filled with breathable air, but due to the hostile environment outside, most choose to live as uploads in simulated worlds. By the year 3000, the Jovian Commonwealth has partially recovered from its oligarchic roots. Its executive council still descends from powerful families that emerge victorious from the war, and it still dominates Jovian politics. But the Civic Council, which is democratically elected, has over the centuries become a true political entity with real influence. The Jovian Commonwealth is also one of the solar system's major powers, even if behind Mars, Earth, and the next planetary system on this list. Saturn. The Saturn system emerged as one of the most unique societies of the solar system, centered on Titan, an eerily alien yet Earth-like moon with the surface made up of ice so cold it acts like rock, and seas and rivers made up of methane. On Titan, which offers habitable surface pressure and radiation protection, the physical population can go outside with fairly minimal suits, with just breathable air and protection from the cold. They live in vast open cities with megastructures and skyscrapers taller than anything possible on Earth. But it is also very dim this far from the sun, and nights are weeks long, so many still choose to live as uploads in some of the most advanced simulated environments any society can offer. The Saturnian system also has a unique form of government, a cognition-led epistocracy, where governance is done through cognitions. This model, strange to Earth and Mars, proved remarkably effective. Saturnians invested heavily in advanced technology and optimizing the bureaucracy through the use of these specialized cognitions. This has allowed Titan and the Saturn system to become a solar system superpower, almost as powerful as Mars by the year 3000. Oranos is one of the harsher and more unequal places to live in the solar system. The United Moons of Oranos developed as a federation and consensus democracy made up of its similarly sized moons, where policies only pass once all members agree. On Oranos' moons, most of the physical population lives in underground rotating megastructures, but the vast majority live as uploads in simulated worlds, as it offers a much better life than the physical. By the year 3000, Oranos' consensus democracy has hardened into a bureaucratic autocracy. It is not a dictatorship, but officials are no longer elected. They climb a rigid bureaucratic ladder to gain power, while ordinary citizens are left with little influence. Oranos remains an isolated, middling power. The Neptune sovereignty is centered almost entirely on Triton, Neptune's largest moon. It began as an elective autocracy, where the population picked a supreme leader or dictator every 33 years. Like on Oranos' moons, the vast majority live as uploads in simulated worlds. Only the sovereign and elites enjoy luxury and high standards of living in the physical. By the year 3000, the sovereign has consolidated permanent authority over the system, ruling indefinitely thanks to the end of natural aging. Persephone was one of the last places in the solar system to be settled, established mainly for research and preparation for humanity's first interstellar voyages. With little to offer in terms of life in the physical, no sunlight, only the dim glow of distant stars and small low-gravity moons, it quickly became a society of uploads and cognitions. Persephone is the first place where cognitions truly built their own civilization, though uploaded humans play an important role, and Persephone maintains a small physical population. On the interstellar stage, each star system acts as its own microcosm. Interstellar trade is rare and costly due to the immense distances, but interplanetary trade is constant and vital, so this creates what is in essence a bunch of isolated islands of life all throughout known space. For the solar system, this reality gave rise to the Council of Sol, founded in 2452 and headquartered on Neutral Ceres. It represents the solar system's many civilizations on the interstellar stage. It formed as our colonies around other stars grew prominent enough that they became their own civilizations and could pose a threat. The Council serves as an interplanetary organization, not really a proper state or government. It mediates trade agreements, is a forum for resolving disputes, and most importantly, handles solar system-wide defenses, primarily deep space early warning systems that can detect and intercept weapons of mass destruction long before they get anywhere near the heliopause. As it turns out, the universe is under no obligation to make space exploration convenient, and the speed of light really is the speed limit of the universe. By the year 3000, known space, the extent of human civilization, is around 1,400 light-years across, containing around 4 million stars, but only a fraction of the more than 100 billion in the entire Milky Way galaxy. The extent of known space continues to grow at roughly the speed of light, as explorers, human, artificial, and everything in between, venture out to settle their own worlds, like cognitions aiming to find their own way and evolve beyond their symbiotic relationship with humanity. On Eos, in the Delta Pavonis system, a star system not far from Sol, the competition between humanist and syntheticist coalitions ultimately ended with the syntheticists outcompeting the humanists. This outcome was common across most settled systems. Humanist societies, by their very nature, exclude the vast diversity of digital minds and cognitions, and this put them at a disadvantage. But the galaxy and even known space is vast. Many strict humanists, such as on Eos, simply fled their world to establish new colonies hundreds or thousands of light-years from Sol and Delta Pavonis. The further we get from Sol, the lower the density of civilizations. There is no galactic empire or anything of the sort. Interstellar trade is very rare, as most star system-based civilizations are fully self-sufficient, and travel between stars takes years or centuries. This is how human society continues, perhaps indefinitely, as it expands across the galaxy. Millions, eventually billions, of mostly isolated societies. Some still resemble 21st century human civilization, some regress purposefully and live as hunter-gatherers, and some become completely alien to us. By the year 3000, humanity has developed some of the most destructive and easily accessible weapons imaginable. Of course, we've had nuclear weapons for centuries, and more advanced technology has only made them easier to produce. Constructing megaton or gigaton nuclear weapons is trivial, even for a minor asteroid civilization. Fusion-powered constant acceleration torch drives developed in the 2100s made interplanetary travel a matter of weeks instead of years, and as industrial-scale antimatter production became viable around the 2500s, it revolutionized space travel once again, making near-light-speed trips far more affordable. But both technologies also brought with them planet-ending superweapons. Extremely fast kinetic weapons, interplanetary bullets, or rods from God as they've been dubbed in some media, that can be even more destructive than nukes. At high enough speeds, near the speed of light, they become relativistic kill vehicles, proper planet busters that melt entire continents and crack open the crust so hard it exposes the mantle. Antimatter bombs, which can achieve similar results, but can be detonated instantly, on location. With these absurdly powerful weapons, you'd think humanity would be doomed. But of course, we have defenses too. The first celestial war all the way back in the 2200s, where Callisto lost millions and annihilated the small moon of Lysithea, proved that mutually assured destruction was no longer enough. In the aftermath, much more advanced and very expensive defense systems that made mutually assured destruction obsolete became the standard across all major settlements, making large-scale attacks nearly impossible to pull off. Antimatter bombs are dangerous, but they're also easy to detect. The magnetic fields used to store antimatter leave very obvious signatures that with powerful enough instruments can be detected millions of kilometers away, so you can't really sneak one onto a planet or build one in secret. Relativistic weapons, similarly, are easily detectable with powerful enough instruments. To reach these speeds, they have to accelerate for months, and any drive capable of that would leave a bright, unmistakable signature throughout. Traveling near light speed, they generate long trails of high-energy radiation as they plow through and heat up the dust and gas in the interstellar medium. This means 31st century conflict shifts to more conventional means. Wars between major powers are fought with automated machines around smaller colonies. Full-scale assaults and all-out war in populated areas only happens on contested worlds throughout known space, far from Earth and the solar system. But that's about all for now. A big thank you to members Tired New Englander, Polanska, Pac-Man, Paris Orbay, Willykins, Deblobo, Matt Past, Just for Cause, and Kaios100 for supporting the channel. And if you also want to be mentioned at the end of videos or get other membership perks like early access to videos and my full resolution maps, consider joining. Making a small channel like this sustainable as a job is honestly very tough, especially when there aren't many sponsors. So if you have the means and want more content like this, please consider joining. Any contribution makes a big difference. Also, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. See you next time.